Good afternoon. Today, we're gonna do some rear brakes on this 2013 Highlander. Don't try to do rear brakes with your e-brake on. It's got internal drums, you'll be fighting the thing, it's gonna suck. Just jack it up to where just off the ground and maybe a little extra. We'll get some jack stands, put it under here so nobody gets dead on today. Get that there, that's fine, that'll protect you. We're gonna try to do this the old-fashioned way, which is when you don't have somebody to hit the brakes for you. Try and show you a trick. If you're spinning, like how are you gonna do that? Well, you just stick your foot under there and you can break it loose, you see? Stops it from spinning with your foot. Don't hit yourself in the face. I saw somebody break their nose like that before. Oh. So now that you got all your nuts removed, you just take your tire off. Oh, this one actually came off. I thought I was gonna have to hammer fist it. We got fancy seats around here. You don't have a seat, sit on your tire. Like I said, we got fancy seats. What holds your shit. All right, so we take a pry bar. If you don't have a pry bar, you can probably use a screwdriver, just don't break it, because then you'll have a broken screwdriver. You stick it in here between your caliper and your brake pad, and you pull on it. That's gonna compress the caliper. Now you got plenty of room. See how much movement you got there? You didn't have that before. Now you'll be able to take this off, you'll be able to throw your new pads right in. So you're gonna loosen up your bolts here. Sometimes you gotta use a little impact force. That's what your hands are for. You're just gonna take the bolts out. That way you can take your caliper off. You want 2 bolts out. You're gonna put those somewhere safe so you don't lose them. And you take your caliper off. Boom, just like that. Now, you'll be able to get your brake pads up. You can like use your hands for this. I'm just using a pry bar. Take that out. And go take that out. So now we're going to take off the bolts for the caliper mount. Now these might be a little tighter. You have to really use your impact hammer. Also put those somewhere safe. You get your caliper mount off. That's where your caliper mounts to. Then you're going to go ahead and remove your rotor, because now there's nothing holding on. If this is stuck there are 2 holes that you can get spare bolts. Thread them into these. Don't use bolts that you have to use again. What that'll do is that'll push against the axle here and actually force the rotor off. If it's really fighting you, there's this little plug that you can pop out. You use a screwdriver, get it from the front. That's an access hole. So you can come over here through this hole. It's gonna be a pain when everything's on, but you can loosen this up. That will collapse these here, and it'll give you more room to pull your rotor off. So just taking a look at this, everything looks actually pretty good. There's still plenty of pad left on the shoes. We're just gonna get all the brake dust off of here with some brake parts cleaner. Just soak it down. That's why you get a drain pan so it's not getting all over your driveway or whatever you're doing this in. So we're gonna go ahead and open up, take your rotor out, take it out of the package. Now you might notice, even though this is a painted rotor, right, this whole surface is painted so it doesn't rust. In order to keep this from rusting in the factory, they coat it with oil. You don't want to just leave that on there. You're going to want to clean that off. So you just hang it on here, backwards like. Take your brake clean, lay it down. Get all the schmutz out of there. Probably wiping it with a rag is a good idea. I got to go get a rag. Brandon's going to get a rag. That's even better.
Good guy. Top 10. Nice hat.
Thanks, man. Just wipe it down. Just trying to get that oil residue off of there. Nothing too special. Flip it over. This also has a spot for the adjustment to be made. You should line that up with one of the holes on here. Oh, no, see, I lied. See, you can't really get at that. Go over one more. There we go. Nice hole there. You see there is a contact surface if we needed to put these bolts in here in the future. Pop that into the new one. And pop it.
Lock it. Pop it. Lock it.
Just pop it in there. There you go. Slides right in. And now I'm going to start getting our caliper mount prepped. So we've actually got all new clips to go on here. So we're going to pop these off. Take a little file action to where these are sitting on so that, you know, get all the rust and schmutz off of there. We grease up our slide bolts. Get this all prepped and nice. So you're just gonna clean up the surfaces. Doesn't have to be pristine, but make sure there ain't no rust build up on there. Gonna make the tolerances too tight or something like that. I like to put a little bit of Never Seize or Anti-Seize, the stuff that turns into the Tin Man, that flavor. Put that underneath where the clips go, just to try to prevent rust from building up in the future. Back into place. There we go. That one went on that time. We're gonna pop out our bolts. You're pop it out. You take that. Take some brake grease. You just kind of paint it on there. Now you don't want too much, because then we'll have a perfect seal, and it'll be like kind of vacuumed in there. It won't move back and forth. It'll just be stuck. All right, you want it to move freely. You're gonna take some of your brake grease there. Just paint it onto where the pads are going to go on the caliper mount. So that's good. Then we're gonna put the mount back on. You want to find your 2 bolts that you haven't lost yet because you put them where you knew they were gonna be. So it looks like we've got all 4 pads are identical. Now remember, we had this little clip here on the inside one. You're going to take a new pad, hold it like it's going to be in that spot, which is like this, and install a clip so that it will be in the same location. I guess that's fine. And should just pop right into place there. Take another new pad. You don't have to put a clip on this one. Stick it in one side first, kind of wedge it in there. Boom, get your pads in place. One more spot that I usually grease is the contact surface of the caliper itself, and where the back side of the caliper is going to be contacting the pad on the outside. Some people just slab that grease all over this, and it's all over the place on the pad. I just put it right on those 2 surfaces, and you can go ahead and mount your caliper. Tighten those down on here. Oh, we never tighten these down. You got to tighten all your bolts. Don't forget to do that. Your caliper mount bolts, those should be tight. Those are nice heavy duty bolts. Top bolts, same thing, just tighten them down. These do not have to be as tight. They're smaller bolts. Basically just tighten them down to the point where you're not gonna snap them, but so you know they're not gonna come loose. Just snug them up pretty good. That should be fine. So that's about it for one side. As you can see though, we've still got a lot of play here. So what we're actually gonna do is step on the brakes. That'll force all that fluid that we forced out of this caliper back from the master cylinder into this side, and hopefully we won't overflow the reservoir when we go to do the rest of the brakes. All right, so when you're tightening your tires down, on a serious note, Toyota's had this weird little flange. It's very easy to get this offset and actually tighten this down on the surface where this is supposed to go. And you go down the road, you hit the gas, you hit the brakes, it clunks loose, and you're gonna have a bad time because these aren't actually tight. I usually do like the top and bottom somewhat across from each other, you know. Give it a little shake, make sure everything's seated on there. Try and tighten those 2 down, and you should be good to go. More brakes. You just want to go till it clicks. And don't push it any harder after that, because then you're over torquing it. I like my side down.
Yeah, thanks for the notice.
All right, so we're gonna do front brakes too. So let's learn, bitches. Remember how before we was in park and we didn't want the e-brake set because we was doing the back brakes? This time we want the e-brake set. So same deal as the rear. So we're gonna use the pry bar to compress the caliper. If at any point in time you're compressing this and fluid starts dripping from inside the vehicle around this point, your master cylinder has overflowed. This is usually the case when somebody thinks it is proper to fill up their brake fluid. That is a sealed system. The only reason it should be low is if you are running out of pads. When you put new pads in, it should force that fluid back into the master cylinder, or if you actually have a leak. Also, if you are leaking brake fluid all over the inside of your engine bay, you're gonna wanna clean it up pretty quick, because that will take the paint right off your fucking shit. We're going to loosen up this bolt but the inside bit there is spinning. This bit right here. All right, so what we got to do is hold that still, because if that's spinning, then we ain't actually loosening nothing. Ow! Punched myself in the hand. It's good. It worked. So these little spring clips is to make it so that your brakes aren't constantly riding up against. Just gonna set those off to the side, but keep in mind how they were oriented in there. Take the pads out. So yeah, again, in there, inside, first surface that's going to be contacting the pad is where that little clip goes. What it does is just, as the pad wears down completely, this will ride against the rotor, make an awful noise. You'll know something's wrong, but they do that before the pad's totally worn out so you don't destroy your rotors. Off. So yeah, just pay attention to where you pull these clips off of, and then you know where to put the new ones back on. This one's wrong because our rotor is going to be in the middle there, so that needs to go over here. We're going to get one opposite flavor. Cram it in there, right? There, see, plenty of space for your rotor to go in, and these are going to hold your pads where they're supposed to be. And do the same thing on the top. Oh,
Insies.
oh. All right, so the move is get the edge towards the center of the rotor caught first and rotate it in. That's the advice that I'm giving because that's what just worked for me. There you go. Put this back down in place. Make sure that you don't twist your brake line around too. If you flip it one way, flip it back the same way. So we got the same issue tightening this down as when we were loosening it with that whole thing spinning. Just throw our vice grips right onto that hex there. Yeah, that's plenty. Tighten right down. Now we're just gonna go do the same thing on the other side. Ship it. Wow, this actually went kind of slow. First time using the brakes, take it easy a few times. Make sure they're working before you get to the point where you need them as well.
Oh, yeah.
No pulsation at all now.
None.
Way better. Yeah, I don't want to really slam on them, but there's no pulsation at all. We're good. All right, so successful test drive. No more pulsation in the brakes. It does smell a little bit. That's just the new brake smell that'll wear off. It'll be fine. I think we're good to go though. So, successful brake job.
Let's get some ASMR caliper sounds.
Ooh, we blew a seal.